Hello and welcome back to the SMITE Challenger Circuit over in the European region. Our first set of the day is done, and we move into our second of the European matchups of the day. We'll have the Niflheim Wargs and the Highland Ravens facing off for our second matchup and to round out the remainder of our EU day. And then after that, we'll move on to some NA fun. My name's J-Max Hucker. I got Charlie Rella joining me over on the desk for this second set. And it should be a good one here. Highland Ravens still remaining an undefeated team up until this point. Niflheim Wargs, however, haven't been able to find a victory just yet. All the roster shakeups from these two teams still seems to be affecting Niflheim Wargs just a little bit, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a daunting task, right, going up against an undefeated team in that sense. But, you know, I think the Wargs, if they're going to make a run for Worlds, right, if they're going to turn on the Jets, now would be the time to do it. You don't want to fall 0-3. Like, that's not going to be a great start to the last phase. So I imagine if they were holding some tricks, we're going to be seeing them here shortly.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need to see them. And as you can see, then tomorrow morning will be our final matchup of the EU-SCC Hex Mambo Gilded Gladiators. We'll start that one out. But jumping in and taking a quick look at the standings there, you can see that the Ravens and the Mambo are the only two teams still undefeated in the European region. Niflheim Wargs, as mentioned, still have yet to be able to find a win for themselves as of now. So I think you're right to say that if they want to try and find some wins, now's the time to do so. I mean, you have to take their matchups against top teams from here on out, especially against some top players in the league just in general as a whole out there. Niflheim Wargs have a lot to work on because when you look over at the Highland Ravens, I mean, this is a star-studded roster. Kana, Adapting, Angry, Ice Silence, and Vaporish Coast is going to be a hard team to really be able to face off against because this is a team, and it's something that we always like to talk about, Charlie, which is it's a star player in almost every single role. It's a team, it's a player that can pop off and be the carry in just about any spot.
Yeah, and that's scary because you don't know which lane you want to focus in that sense, right? Because, you know, usually you're like, okay, we'll find the weak link, we'll find who doesn't have pressure in this matchup, and then we can camp that lane, sort of, you know, focus that side of the map, invade buffs on, you know, blue buff, purple buff, that sort of thing, stay on one side. Yeah, it's very difficult to do that into the Ravens because, as you said, you got Coast and the ADC. You got Kana sticking around whenever you need to, and then Adapting's running the map throughout. It's just so difficult to try and just track one player down. And even if you are looking at those players, Angry's in the back doing so much damage. It's just not going to be easy to try and upset the Ravens in this situation. But as we've said, like the Wargs, they got to turn it on now. This is one of those situations where you're on the road to Worlds. Every game has to count. You don't want to fall 0-3. It's just going to be very difficult to knock the Ravens off their roll, right? They've been looking real clean thus far, and since it's just them and Mambo that are undefeated, they don't want to lose that.
No, the Ravens do not want to do so. Adapting on this Ratatosker, an interesting pick out there. I mean, when we think of Adapting, we think of like Thor as like kind of the number one there, but this Ratatosker has kind of been his number two kind of pocket pick that he goes to. And he's dominating on this pick. I think 2 9-0 performances the last time that he's been able to get this god. So I would be very surprised if we saw the Ratatosker make its way over to Adapting once more just because of the performance he's had on it. But then up against him, the Niflheim Wargs team. Bevy Monster, Sarpei, Itori, Kazakhs, and Spudio. So again, these are no bad players by any means. I mean, all these players have had amazing performances throughout their career, but so far, as a team, holistically as a team, this has just not been able to be a team that's pulled it together. They're able to get some nice early leads, but they're just not able to close these games out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's one thing to be able to find those early leads, be able to find some goal deficits here and there, but you have to be able to team fight if you're in the EU-SCC. I mean, you have to be looking real clean, 25-plus minutes. You know, I mean, look at this game. This game is 40 minutes into the game, and you have to be playing that cleanly. It's a completely different ball game, right? You don't have the same power spikes. You're looking at 3K pots at that point, and a lot of the games in the EU-SCC tend to go this late. So you got to make sure that you're able to get to that late game stage and also play as crisply as possible. Because it's when you're at 30 minutes plus, it's one person steps out of position, one relic gets wasted, one ultimate doesn't get value, and you lose. Like, the game is completely over at that point. So the Wargs have been able to consistently make it to those points in the game, but haven't quite been able to close out those two-game sets, as you said.
And we can jump right into the picks and bans now for game number one between the Niflheim Wargs and the Highland Ravens. Kepri, the first ban, Highland Ravens will take Daji away. And I'm curious if we will see the Heimdall ban. That's become a staple in EU. Whether Heimdall himself is actually a really good god or not, whether he is meta or not, for these EU hunters, that is one of the number one go-to gods. And that all starts just because there's one player who was really good on this guy. I mean, you look back and you have players like E-Chrome and Coast and whatnot. They got really good on the pick. And so everybody else kind of had to follow suit, and that's why we see him banned so often. Haven't seen him just yet because Yu Huang joins the mix. And I'm going to ask you, Charlie, Is Yu Wong really just that good? Because it seems, at least in the EUSCC or just in the SCC in general, a lot of teams are not wanting this god to make it through picks and bans.
Yeah, it seems to me because in the SBL he's been largely overlooked for a while. Like when he first released, it was like this god was the flavor of the month. Everyone was trying him in mid or at least banning him away. Now hasn't been looked at too much in the SCC. However, I think he's always just brings good early pressure, good damage. It's just I think he's the new Tiamat. I think that's a good way to describe him. Right, he'll bring everything that you would want, not anything too amazing, but just everything does well. So in this case, probably smart the work to take it away from Angry, and they are just gonna get Yamoja in that first pick slot. I think we've talked a fair bit about how strong Yamoja is. You're going to get pressure in that lane. You're going to have a sustain that you don't want to deal with. Yamoja just brings it all as well.
So yeah, Yamoja for the Wargs. Ravens will grab Chernabog. So interesting, the fact that Heimdall has gotten ignored as a first pick. This one going over for the Highland Ravens. One more pick available to them before it jumps back over to the Wargs. Guan Yu, Ratatosker, and Hades banned away.
I love that.
Hades actually, or I should say Ratatosker being banned away from adapting himself. But a Kumbhakarn, you say you like that pick. What do you like about the Kumbhakarn here, Trelly?
I mean, they buffed the Sleepy Time passive a bit ago. It's just one of those picks that tells me you want to get aggressive, right? Despite the playstyle of Kumba, which is like, infinite CC, not crazy amounts of damage. If you build him with like crazy amounts of CC and just cooldown reduction, you're getting in there. I mean, you're going in constantly. You could just blink in meds and then just stare at someone and like they have to beads, or then you can still ult them after. Epic Uppercut is just crazy amounts of CC as well. So I just love the Kuma because that tells me a playstyle is coming where it's either going to Kana and solo, which we have seen before, or Silence is going to take it into that duo lane, and we're going to see some action. You're going to be getting active consistently, and because the Horus gets locked in. Usually that would say, oh, support, but because we've seen Kana play the Horus solo before, that tells me that's probably going to be the Horus solo.
So potential Horus solo. Opposite side, Artemis and Mulan are the pickups for the Wargs as the bans start to roll through. Naja and Thor now taken away. So it seems it's multi-shots at the jungle at the moment there. Nemesis will be added to the ranks, so quite a few shots in towards the jungle between Daji, Ratatosker, Nemesis, Naja, Thor, and Raven, actually. Was not expecting a Raven to go through there.
You got to dive deep in the god pool.
Now we really got to see where they're going to go. What kind of bag of tricks is adapting, and even the jungler over there, Sarpei, for the Niflheim Wargs, where are they going to go? We'll have to wait a little while, because it's a Baba Yaga right back after for the Ravens.
I mean, that's a pick that I wouldn't mind first picking in the current meta, and it looks like we'll just be able to get through here. So Baba Yaga brings a ton of damage in the early, or not a ton of damage in the early, a ton of safety in the early. Yeah, Pele, and I was going to say, like, adapting Fenrir. Like, there's a ton of picks that still made it through here. So despite the fact that there was a lot of jungle bans, you're still going to be able to get what you want here. So the Wargs going to pick up the Pele, tons of early pressures we were saying. But, I mean, I'm pretty fine with taking a Baba Yaga in that fourth pick slot. Like, that's, even in the EUSCC, it's pretty highly contested. And it looks like Merlin is going to be the last pick there for the Wargs. So I think they've rounded their draft out pretty well. I'm a little bit worried about the early pressure just because, Merlin and Artemis to me scream late game. The Mulan can come online pretty early, but you want to stack your abilities up first. And adapting's Hunbat, that's another one that made it all the way through. That's wild.
It's just funny, we talk about the 5 assassins that got banned away, and then it's like, oh, well, Pele, who's like #1 pick in the SPL for junglers, is still available. Hunbats, which kind of has become a default kind of #2 for a lot of junglers too. So still a couple of big picks that were left open. And then the Baba Yaga and the Merlin as well, which has just become a staple safe pick amongst the mid laners. So for the EUSCC, we jump into game #1 with the Niflheim Wargs and the Highland Ravens. See who's going to be bringing home at least the very important game #1 between the two teams. Remember, Highland Ravens undefeated in their first 2 weeks of play. Niflheim Wargs have yet to be able to find a set win for themselves. Would be very big if the Wargs can at least get off to the right foot this time around. Looking through doesn't really scream anything kind of wild to me. We've been seeing a lot of very similar styles of builds. The Bevy Monster might be the only one that kind of sticks out to me. Warrior's Axe into a tier 1 Cudgel. And normally we would see something like a Soul Eater in that slot or maybe get some extra defense, but this Cudgel kind of sticks out to me a little bit, Trelly.
Yeah, I mean, Blackthorn Hammer is going to be decent. We usually see some sort of build like this when you're up against a magical in the lane and then a physical in the jungle, but with Kana and adapting both being physical, I can't imagine that there, wouldn't have been a better spot, like just, a sovereignty or something like that. It tells me that Bevy wants to get aggressive, right? You're trying to get aggressive in lane. You're trying to look for kills. Like, just get pressure. And that is what Bevy's bringing. And you can see kind of already stuck underneath the lane, probably because Horus doesn't have good clear. You know, going to be a while before that Golden Blade is online and you're able to actually clear the full wave in that sense. So Bevy's not trying to sit back on this Mulan and farm up and wait till late game to rotate. Trying to fight as early as possible. That's what this build tells me.
Yeah, definitely a very aggressive style of build for an aggressive god on that Mulan. As you mentioned, Kana's going to be a little while before he can start getting that clear online with that Golden Blade. Quick pause in the action. We should be able to get right back into it in just a moment here. So not a whole lot kind of craziness going on early. We do see that the junglers haven't really made a rotation over towards the right side. Typically when we look over at the SPL and even some of the couple of weeks have passed, it's been junglers trying to get early Totemaku pressure for their solo laners, try and get some of those early rotations towards the right side. But as we can see, as of now, at the very least, jungle mostly kind of focusing over towards the left side. Does that maybe kind of lean towards you, Charlie, that these junglers aren't really caring about solo and they would rather try and get pressure maybe in the mid or in the dual lane?
I mean, with how much farm is in the dual lane and the Interceptor being, you know, so prominent over there, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like constant pressure in the dual lane, especially because adapting is looking to burn beads. There's a Kumbhakarna over there that's going to burn beads. So if you're looking to like hit 5, look for a gank potential, dual lane's going to be pretty solid, especially with that blink start. So would not be surprised if we saw both junglers hang around that dual lane at least until the first purple buff respawns, and then maybe look towards that solo lane after the fact. Just trying to get aggressive in the early, waiting for that level 5 power spike. Always the name of the game here for those junglers.
Well, first Scepter does go to Niflheim Wargs, the Emoja Artemis lane, getting just a slight little lead over the Chernobog Kumbhakarn. Not a whole lot of heavy clear for those two on the side of the Ravens. Pretty similar for the Wargs, if not for Yemoja's ability with the Omi, just to be able to slam out a bunch of abilities on wave number 1 and gets a pretty quick clear. That is going to force the Ravens to be a little bit under tower. And this is probably what we can at least expect until that level 5 hits. And maybe even an early rotation from adapting? No, it seems he's wrapping back himself over towards the mid lane instead. Thought maybe he'd make an early rotation over, but not going to focus over there. Instead, just going to try and get angry through these first few waves.
Yeah, it looked like a possible like purple buff invade, but it's just not time for it yet. So we'll just head over towards the left side of the map. We'll have to see if it is going to be the red buff invade, as Sarpei is going to try and take out the blue buff on the right side of the map. So both junglers showing their presence on opposite sides. I think that's the right call. Once you see that there's a Pele over on right, just go left, right? You can try to invade the purple buff, and where's adapting going? Right over to that purple buff, trying to steal this one away.
Silence on the way. Hog used. Spudio will get through the Riptide, and that's enough to stop adapting from going any further forward. And a lot of that credit to the fact that Hog has been saved by these supports, typically for the second or maybe even third spawns of some of these camps. So that will allow Kha'Zix and Spudio to be able to safely hold on to their own farm. Adapting picked up the red buff earlier on, so he's basically just going to be going to drop his speed for the sake of dropping his speed buff at this point, where Sarpei going to have a little bit of extra mobility within the jungle now with their speed.
Yeah, looking for the level 5 power spike, right? You have that red buff, maybe you finish like a Jotun's Wrath or a Crusher, whichever one you want to go for, and then you just try to get active on the map. Because you're up against a fair bit of healing, he could even go for the Brawlers, but with that red buff, could be looking to get aggressive. Sarpei, however, looking to get aggressive on Nakana. This is going to be hard to live through, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Dash is good for the heal, but not quite good enough for him. Bevy Monster strikes first blood thanks to the help of some minions. Adapting, trying to fight back in on Itori, but not going to find anything else besides just the toss of the Sacred Monkey. So first blood goes over to Niflheim Wargs, and all that pressure from this Mulan started out very early in the game and now made its trickle effect down through, and it's a good rotation from Sarpei to help get that kill.
Yeah, that's the issue with the Horus solo. I mean, you have to make sure that Golden Blade's online before you step up that far in lane. You just can't quite clear the wave that quickly. And Kana, unfortunately, is going to have to use that teleport a little earlier than you might like. Not going to be able to get the full Golden Blade, and now you're going to be playing Farmville for quite some time. You just can't quite clear quickly enough. I mean, you don't have the Golden Blade, so you have to sit underneath that tower. Bevy Monster finishes the full Blackthorn Hammer, and it's just going to be doing so much damage at that tower line. Maybe even looks to make some rotations over. It's just not going to be easy. Those abilities are also, as you said, that trickle-down effect. Bevy Monster is going to get those upgraded abilities way faster now. You get to free cast on the wave. And once you get those upgraded abilities, that's when Mulan really starts swinging.
Yeah, you get, what is it, the third swing on the first ability. You get a second
shot
on the spear thrust, that second ability. Grappled, you can lash to a wall. That's pretty cool, though. And then obviously just extra damage across the board, all that scaling that really comes so beneficial for the Mulan. Wonder how far Kana is away from being able to get that golden blade. He did go back and buy a chalice with his last little bit and a couple of multi-pots. And he's pretty far down, only 950 gold in hand. That is not going to be enough for him to pick up that golden blade. So Kana going to be struggling for the next few levels in this game.
Yeah, upgrade the teleport also, just trying to use that gold to stay in lane as much as possible. Sarpe is looking for the rotation here, but I don't imagine there's any sort of tower dive potential. You know, Horus is easy to kill without the dash, but you know, you're not diving tower this early. Those towers do be swinging. They do a lot of damage ever since 9-5, so probably smart not to go for that. But this is pretty run-of-the-mill Wargs gameplay, right? We've seen them get early leads time and time again. It's what does that translate to? So far, we're seeing a little bit of an attempt at a Greater Scorpion invade, but because, you know, Pyromancer hasn't spawned back in, it's hard to get too aggressive on the right side of the map. Gold Fury pull, I don't imagine that's coming anytime soon. There's no real amount of burst on this side of the Wargs. Like they've got pretty decent burn, especially if Itori's got the stand switch up and stacks that Warlocks later on. Like there will be a fair bit of damage coming through. It's just not quite here yet. So I like the overall aggression and the look at the buff invades, but it's got to translate to something at about level 11, level 12. Look for that first Pyromancer spawn, or at least look to get aggressive around those objectives, force those fights. That's what the Wargs have to do.
Kana is just being bullied under tower. Does have teleport available, so he'll have to go back to base, maybe pick up tier 2. Maybe it's just a kill for Bevy. Sarpe comes through, Volcanic Lightning hits the tower, doesn't go any further, but then uses that Conal Autos after to find one. But because of how long that Bevy was tanking up the tower, he will go down. No kill credit over to Kana because of that, not even an assist to his name. So it's just one kill for Sarpe.
You know that Bevy was like, okay, the ult's going to hit, and then we're going to be all good, and unfortunately just right into the wall. Wasn't able to just surf around that tower, and a little bit longer takes the kill. But as you said, no assist, no kill. Bevy Monster just going to be going back to base a little bit quicker than you would expect, and you don't lose too much farm in that sense. And if anything, you give the wave over to Sarpe. So it wasn't all negative, and of course the Wargs are now up 2-0. At the current moment, we did see a little bit of a scuffle over in Leffe Porish Coast. Used that ult to get aggressive, tried to use the beats to chase down Spudio, but got the ult down, and that was pretty much a net wash. Does give Coast a little bit of an XP lead, but with the beads down and the ultimate down, now that Chernobog is going to have to be a little bit safer in lane. Once Tusky comes back up, it could get real scary, especially if you go into the wall and then you can just place an Artemis trap at the end of the wall. You're pretty much guaranteed to get CC'd and autoed like 3 or 4 times for free. So you got to be careful, and I think Coast knows that. Probably going to sit pretty far back in lane as Silence tries to go for the purple buff invade. Not going to be the case, but this was that play style I was talking about. Kumba can do this safely. You can go to a purple buff at 7 minutes and not really care about your life. You know there's no ultimates down. You know you got Epic Uppercut if you're really in any danger, and Silence is using that tankiness and that Sleepy Time passive to try and bait out the Wargs to step too far up.
He's trying to bait them now, but Adapting just walked over a ward, so Spudio and Kha'Zix's aware that the jungler is standing by. So they're not going to try and make too many aggressive plays. And I would like to see more use of this Kumbhakar, more use of this Hun Bats, because so far we haven't seen either of them really drop an ultimate just yet. Both of them so good at being able to burn beads from anybody on the enemy team. That's not to include the fact that Kana is also there to be able to grab some if he lands his dash onto someone. So no real pressure on Relics. Ultimate from Sarpe, chases out Kana. Kana tries to get to the tower, but he might just go down. Bevy doesn't grab the ult, does get the grapple after. And that will secure the kill. 3 now onto the solo laner of the Highland Ravens. And all the gold that the Wargs have been able to amass so far, nearly 2,000 gold, about 1,700. Most of that off the pocket of a Bevy and Sarpe.
Yeah, this pressure over on the solo lane has been it's been pretty disastrous thus far, but as you said, not the biggest gold lead in the world. I mean, the 2K at this point is pretty big, but again, you got to translate it into that Pyromancer. That's what I want to see. 10 minutes or so, just look to get aggressive immediately when that objective spawns back in. At the moment, Bevy Monster essentially 2-0, right? That death of the tower isn't going to net any gold over to the Ravens, but sitting pretty good. And Sarpe 1-0 on this Pele should be able to rotate over to the left, and that's not a bad idea either, right? If you instead of going for Pyromancer, send over Bevy Monster, right? Look for that Gold Fury early on. You've got the pressure. As long as Adapting's ult is down or someone keeps him in combat, you got some pretty good burn potential on that early Gold Fury. So I guess the Warriors are just going to be playing it safe at this point on. until that Pyromancer spawns in about 20 seconds. And you can already see that Kha'Zix is on his way over to right, so maybe going to get some vision down for this Pyromancer once it spawns back in, and we might see a little bit of a fight here.
But with Scorpion going down, no continued threat over. Bevimonsta still with a pretty nice little lead over Kana. Fight between the Hunters. Coast up in the sky, down on the ground. But with Sarpei nearby and a Volcanic Lightning to chase, Coast will get the double dash to get as far as he can, but Sarpei very fast on this Pele. Will close gap immediately. Be able to get some damage. Misses the knockup. Gross gets the turnaround route and should be fine. Sarpei chasing under this tower. Kha'Zix here. No, the Riptide! The Riptide throws Sarpei back under tower. Sarpei probably panicking just for a moment there, praying that a second tower shot doesn't go through. Luckily for him, it does not. Adapting, though, on the way. And that should stop any aggression from the Wargs.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Coast was ready for that for somehow, it looks like, ooh, there might be a little bit of aggression on a Spudio here. Remember, the board's down, holding on to Fear No Evil. It looks like Kha'Zix is going to be the target, but they're holding these ultimates until the very last second. And they're not even going to drop them. Wow, I really thought Epic Uppercut into a Fear No Evil could have netted a kill, but they're trying to save those abilities to try and find kills after the fact. It didn't look like they were pretty confident in their abilities to burst through this tanky Umoja this early on. Either way, though, that'd been hilarious if Coast was able to just turn around, get some autos off underneath the tower, and try and lock down. But now Adapting goes for the regank, blinks, then finally uses the ultimate. Sacred Monkey Toss is good, and that's going to confirm the kill.
Yeah, nice and easy kill for Adapting. That puts the Highland Ravens on the board finally to try and put a little bit of momentum back towards himself. Silence even rotates over just to make sure that Kana can safely get his blue, and I'm pretty sure Kana's in there going, dude, I need experience.
Yeah, please get away.
Please go away from this blue buff. I desperately need anything that I can get to stay even remotely in line with Bevimonsta. Level 12 on the Mulan versus a level 11 Horse, both of them procking over at this lane, at this wave. Grapple just off the mark there by Bevy. We can see that Glad Shield second item plus that Blackthorn. A lot of HP over towards this Mulan. Decent bit of damage. And ult by Silence, locking Sarpei in the Fire Giant pit. And if it weren't for that Volcanic Lightning up off of cooldown, that would have been a kill on the jungler.
Yeah, it was difficult because Silence positioned perfectly to try and block that Volcanic Lightning, but Kumba's not big enough to cover all the options, and there's a pretty easy avenue to just go a little bit to the left and ult out. Pretty low HP there. And you can see Angry tried to cut off as well, but just the home sweet home takes a little bit of travel, and it looks like Blink was up for Sarpei, so wasting the ultimate just to try and get some of those fire shots off. Probably not going to be the best idea. But now we're seeing some wind in the Highland Ravens sails, right? They're starting to get aggressive. They're trying to help Kana get out of the hole that the 0-3 Horse has, dug sort of for themselves, but also more like Sarpei was digging that hole. And the gold lead's still about 2k, so it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. I haven't seen the Wargs get aggressive on these objectives just yet. It looks like they're still trying to find ganks over on the right side of the map, but I imagine Kana with the Golden Blade and the Breastplate should be able to just dash to wave, ult out when necessary. There's just a ton of CC and movement that Kana can bring to this lane, so probably smart to not really look for any more ganks on this side of the map until you're looking to pull an objective, something like that. But another thing, Coast on a traditional, not great 1v1er has been getting extremely aggressive in that lane. This Chernobog has been ulting in, aggressively beadsing, trying to find those 1v1 fights. That lane's going to start swinging, especially when Coast decides to ult over towards these team fights later on.
Silence hit by the grapple. Knockup is good. Silence, though, on this Kumakarn does still have sleepy time. Use the epic uppercut to try and get out, and the River's not quite enough to hold in the Kumba. Sarpei doesn't get the damage to find the kill onto the enemy support. A lot of ultimates used, 3 of them by the Wargs to try and lock down the Ravens, but unsuccessful in finding a pick with those ones. Coast still pushed under the tower on the left side of the map, but Highland Ravens, even despite the fact that they have been 2,000 gold down for so much of this early game, have not been slowing down at all. In fact, ever since that kill from Adapting, it seems that they've been able to pick the pace back up.
Yeah, definitely. Haven't been able to close the gold lead, but the aggression is certainly there, as you said. I was looking to see if maybe Spudio was going to be under some fire. Those beats just came off cooldown. This Artemis was pushed up very far on that left side of the map, but it's because immediately Adapting was called out, right? Hey, there's a Hunbats on the right side of the map. You can get aggressive. You can push up. But Coast is going to try and invade the purple buff here. It will go the way of the Highland Ravens, and Tusky gets dropped too. Silence doesn't have the ultimate. That Sleepy Time passive is here, but I don't know if it's going to save you.
Will fall down, but a few quick autos from the many ranged characters on there will mean that even if he had that sleepy, or the sleep, the mez.
The sleepy.
If he had the sleepy, if he had the ability to put them into sleepy time,
Yeah.
still would have been a little too far out of range there. So good pick by the Niflheim Wargs to bring themselves back in, slow the Ravens' attempted momentum gain back down. And now give themselves a better chance as we start moving in. Gold Fury is available. Pyromancer started by the Niflheim Wargs. So unless Kana find a miracle steal with this first ability, probably not going to be able to get in as Sarpé is doing some decent blocking. And the Niflheim Wargs will grab the Pyromancer.
And that's what I wanted to see. I mean, a little bit later than you would expect with the lead they had, but still they're able to go for a nice pull onto that Pyromancer. They're not going for Gold Free. The left side of the map is dominated by the level 15 Chernobog at the moment. Spudio, a little bit behind itemization-wise. You want to let this Artemis sort of get a fast track to late game, so not bringing too much attention over to the duo lane, probably a smart call here from the Wargs. But as you highlighted, adapting hasn't been getting like too active. You know, he had that one kill, and then it's sort of been, you know, looking, sort of feeling out these fights, you know, walking over to the right side of the map, sort of seeing, hey, should I drop my ultimate? But if it's not for peel for the team, it looks like he's holding on to that 4 key pretty heavily in the early, trying to maybe get some more itemization online before sending out those ultimates. It also tells me the Ravens are probably confident with their late game team fight, right? They don't need to make these end-all, be-all plays to try and save the little bits of gold. They don't need to stop the bleeding, so to speak, of the gold league currently. They're like, hey, we've got Fear No Evil. We've got Coast who can rotate in and help us out whenever we need later on. Let's just keep playing our game, ward up on the Gold Fury, and if it does happen to go to a fight, then we'll feel pretty confident in that sense. We've got all of our relics up, besides teleport from Kana, but with To the Skies can make that rotation if need be. Probably smart to just dial it back and say, hey, we're focusing on the team fight. This lead's not that too far away just yet.
You're telling me an EU SCC team wants to play towards the late game, Trelly?
That's what I'm telling you.
That's a wild concept to me, man. You could have fooled me. Nah. Jokes aside, though, Highland Ravens down, but certainly not out. Only 17 minutes into the game, a 3,000 gold lead is definitely nothing overly insane to really deal with. It's definitely a deficit that is doable for the Highland Ravens. But for the Niflheim Wargs, getting that early lead is the most important thing, because as far as history's indications have been, when the Niflheim Wargs haven't been able to find an early lead, they struggle into the late game team fights. And if they do get an early lead, it's been a hard time for them to transition that through the mid and the late game. So being able to still stay up over the Ravens, very important. Morale of the team for now. Gold Fury looked at, but it will not be started by the Ravens. Instead, Trebuchet in the left lane, down to about half HP, and Trebuchet spawned for the Highland Ravens as well, but that will be on the opposite side of the map. Maybe you see that. Get used to give Kana a little bit of a hand over in the soul lane, because he's still trying to catch back up, at least to Bevy Monza. Has done so as far as experience is concerned. Imagine it's only a little bit of gold separating those two.
Yeah, it looks like just trying to see if anyone will step up. And I still am looking to, it seems like Silence is going to be the one to pull the trigger here. I don't imagine Adapting is going for any blink ults anymore. You know, since the play style has been playing out, it seems like hopefully Silence grabs something like, you know, you already have the shell, so you could get a blink, you could get a few different relics here. I wouldn't hate, you know, the blink, because you can go in, you can get those beads down early on, and then you can wait to see, you know, Adapting, did you get some beads down? Oh, now I can go in, that sort of thing. But look at this, the Wargs are grouped up for the Gold Fury pull. Coast sees this out immediately, but they're just going for it.
There's a lot of shred for the Niflheim Wargs, not quite enough though. Angry with the home sweet home. Will be able to pull the Wargs off of the Fury, but that's now an ultimate down if the team fight does break out. Bevy Monsta met by Kana. Gold Fury reset entirely, but still could be picked up by the Wargs. We saw how much damage is being able to done by 3 of them. If they can find a pick, maybe we see the Niflheim Wargs go for the pull once more.
Yeah, I like the idea that the second Coast is standing there. You'd think that would be enough to try and break off the pull, but they were pretty confident 50-50 versus one member. But once Angry came in with that home sweet home, like, okay, maybe this is not the best idea we've ever had. Bevy Monsta is getting a little bit weak here. I was waiting to see if the beads would come through, and they would. So holds on to Epic Uppercut and gets the beads down on the Mulan. Is that enough for the Ravens to feel confident pulling gold? Doesn't look like that's the case. Kana and Adapting going back over to right lane. And I guess we're just going to call that a win for the Ravens, right? They stopped the pull. They did waste the home sweet home, as you said, but they still get the beads down from Bevy Monsta, so maybe they can try to get aggressive later on. It's going to be a solid 2 minutes and 20 seconds before that route comes back up.
Rune on a Kha'Zix. He'll be fine. Some poke out of Angry and Silence more than anything. Warlock Staff with a third item, Charon's Coin by Angry. An item that typically we would see kind of rushed a little bit earlier on. Even at points we did see it kind of picked up late game just so you can have that nice percent pen. But the benefit of Angry being on that Baba Yaga is you get free stacks. Even sitting at a 0-0 and 0 slash line can be able to get a couple of extra stacks up on that item. And this Baba Yaga, I mean, we're 3 items in. As we start approaching item 4, even potentially item 5, this is where this Baba really starts to shine. This is where those damage numbers really start to ramp up for this god.
Yeah, once that Soul Reaver comes through, we're going to see big damage numbers coming from the Baba. But Itori already has that Soul Reaver online, working on the Obsidian Shard, so the Merlin is also dealing a fair bit of damage. Just hasn't seen too much team fight presence to be able to showcase said damage, but it certainly will come through once again. I mean, the Pyromancer's back up at this point, right? It was pulled at about 15 minutes or so, so already the Gold Fury was looked at, dropped, and then sort of that's really it, right? I mean, besides that, hasn't been too much aggression. Kana actually was able to catch back up and get an XP lead in this solo lane. I believe just because Bevy, made the rotation over, whereas Kana's just like, I clear very quickly with the Golden Blade. I can push this wave under and still be able to make my rotations just as fast. But Coast hitting level 20, that's also going to be real important. Once you get that upgraded starter item, Chernobog really does start to spread, especially with Exekins and Odysseus Bow. You're going to be doing a ton of damage to these tanks that are going to be standing in front of you.
And especially when one of those tanks, in this case Bevy Monster, has stacked a ton of HP to his build. Blackthorn, Glad Shield, working on Manticore Spike and that Heart Ward. Sarpei, body blocked by the ultimate. River's Rebuke will not give a safe spot for the jungler to go. Itori does turn it around, make it a 1-for-1. Kha'Zix now stuck in the middle of 4, rooted in place, gets through one Riptide, knocked up by Kana, and uses the last of his own to get through, but rooted immediately after. And it's Vapor's Coast to come up with the kill. Bevy Monster rooted in place, half HP in an instant. And a crash back down from Coast, a crash in by Kana. The root will catch Bevy right after. The knockup is good, and Silence will put him in the dirt.
I mean, Bevy's beats were up in 5 seconds. Remember like 2 minutes ago when I said it might come into play that Mulan got caught out and used the beats? That's what the Ravens were waiting for. Unfortunate for Adapting that he falls there, because besides that, it seemed like a pretty flawless gank where Adapting caught the Volcanic Lightning, made sure Sarpei wasn't able to get out, but the kill, it didn't go down immediately. Was able to get a ton of damage out. So props to Sarpei for making sure to get that DPS up, and then Itori as well for going deep to making sure to confirm that kill. Besides that, though, everything shows up Ravens off the back of a ton of damage from Vaporish Coast. We were just talking about, how much damage he had in the build and was able to showcase it pretty well. Gold Fury goes down. That's all the Ravens are going to be able to grab at this moment. I was wondering if we would see a little bit of a grouping on the left side of the map for that tier 1 tower, but probably smart after all your ults are down, after all your relics had been used, to just group up in base, spend some of that gold, and then maybe make a rotation over to the Pyromancer. I mean, if I'm Coast, I'm pushing one more Mave max, and then heading over to that objective, right? You want to keep getting that gold in your favor, and you certainly don't want the Wargs to be able to pick it up. Take a look at where Spudio is, though, heading over towards the right side of the map. It looks like they might want to try and make a pull onto that Pyromancer before the Ravens even get a chance to. But with Itori going back to base, I don't imagine that's going to be the call. Maybe just covering the wave for their mid laner. And it looks like, the gold lead has one in favor of the Highland Ravens. And finally now, we're going to see the pull Adapting. Starts up the Pyro.
Pyro, almost dead already. It's knocked out of its channel, at least by Kana, and then Pyromancer picked up by the Highland Ravens. So it was getting close to about 2,500, near 3K lead for the Wargs, is now gone the opposite direction to be about a 2,100 gold lead for the Highland Ravens. A 4,000 plus gold swing off the back of one team fight. Pyromancer is able to go down, a Fury as well. Highland Ravens have really made their turnaround. Vaporish Coast level 20 does manage to go back, pick up his starter item. Silence has been able to grab his, and even Kana able to grab his Hero's Axe as well. And I mean, how the tables have turned. I mean, Kana, who started this game 0-3 within about 8 minutes or so of play, has now been able to find an XP lead and some decent pressure in that solo lane. Tier 1 tower will go down, adds more gold there, and with a Tier 1 tower in mid, it is a slow knockdown of everything. As soon as I call one tower going down, another one falls.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate situation for the Wargs, because we've already highlighted the XP differential, but now you got to deal with Coast, who can ult the team fight whenever need be, and can split push away. So I think I like the Wargs call here. Immediately, you got to pull this Fire Giant because you're just losing gold throughout the map. And I did like it until they just completely dropped it and said, no, we're fine with losing that tier 2 tower and getting absolutely nothing. Bevy Monster, however, could be in a little bit of trouble here. You can see the rest of the team trying to help out, but Coast and Kana want this Mulan dead.
Bead's gone. Angry's here. Damage is good. Grapple will catch Silence. Riptide will pull him right back again. But for now, Silence will be good. Damage in from the mid laner. Decent. Kha'Zix has to back himself out of the fight. Adapting, still holding on to his ult. The last one in his team with it, as is Sarpe and Kha'Zix. So all ults, besides the junglers and then the support from the Niflheim Wargs. And that's enough to get both teams to really back away. With so many tools expended, now the team want to make a full commit, but and Charlie, look at the relics used during that one fight there. Kana just now used his teleport, and that's the only one that was done by the Ravens. Meanwhile, opposite sides, Beads by Bevy, and then both relics by Kha'Zix.
Yeah, and look at that gold lead as well. I mean, what a swing in favor of the Ravens. This is the issue with that Chernobog late game. Now, smart calls sending over Bevy Monster to left lane because, you know, Bevy can clear out the wave and teleport over, but I imagine once the Ravens realize there's a Mulan over there, they're going to head right over to Fire Giant and make their pull, and that's exactly what we are going to see. Adapting actually going to be the one to tank this up. Looks like double tank just trying to zone. Kana front and center, but Spudio's walking up real far on this.
Spudio by himself. Sarpe here. Bead's gone instantly. And Fire Giant still held by Silence. He'll finally dash himself out of the pit and reset the aggro, reset the HP bar of the objective. But that's Beads away from Sarpe. I'm sorry, that's Blink away from Sarpe. It was his bubble that got popped during the midst of that fight. But Fire Giant pulled once again. Bevy stunned, hit by the knockup. Dive in from Adapting over towards Itori. Good transform, will push Adapting away. And the Highland Ravens still holding on to this Fire Giant. The Niflheim Wargs haven't been able to keep them away from the objective at all. It's the Highland Ravens who grab fire, and now they can all just back away.
Yeah, that was a really slow burn, no pun intended, and it worked out for them. No one was able to get in. We saw Sarpe trying to go for the wraparound, but was not able to close that gap without the blink. Did have the beads available, and it looks like Coast trying to chase down Sarpe, but with the Volcanic Lightning, really shouldn't be able to find any more aggression onto this Pele, and that will be the end call. Just go for this Oni Fury that's about to spawn back in, and now the Ravens in full control of this game. They've got plenty of time, they've got plenty of gold, and they still have 2 more tier 2 towers to burn through. They've got every ultimate as well. It's just Coast who used the ultimate there, the Nightmare, to try and chase down Sarpe, but besides that, I mean, you're not going to really need that unless you get poked out in Phoenix, back up to base, and then fly in. So they're in a position where they could pretty easily group up and look towards these tier 2 towers, but smart call to just get some buffs, back up, spend that gold that you just got. We're going to see these last items come through, maybe some upgraded relics in the process. And then it's just going to be the team fight, right? Underneath this Phoenix, they've got some great siege. Kana and Silence are extremely tanky at the moment, followed by Adapting, who can blink in with the Fear No Evil. I definitely don't envy the position the Warriors are in, but check this out. They're trying to set up a little bit of an ambush towards the red buff. It seems like the Ravens are onto us, though. Oh, no, Angry's going to walk. I was going to say, they're all going to walk up together. Angry, the first one to walk up, they're going to spot this out immediately, and we'll just be able to back up. And here comes Adapting.
Bevy in danger. Bevy hit by Kana. Makes it through the Riptide. But Fear No Evil from Adapting. That gets the beads from the Mulan. Ultimate as well. Epic uppercut. Will slam in towards just one. It's Sarpe. Find himself in the backline, but he turns it around and finds the 1v1 against Coast. But Adapting will be able to turn that one around. 1-for-1 trade. Jungle for Hunter. Kha'Zix walks a little far forward. Stunned, but will be just fine for now. Niflheim Wargs find a big pick on the Coast and keeps this Hunter down, and that will slow the tower push by the Highland Ravens.
Yeah, that was a really nice ult by Spudio as well as Sarpe getting to the backline. I mean, Coast used both relics early on, and the Pele was just able to delete his health bar. Even with the rest of the team, like, they're on peel duty. It was just not enough to make sure to keep the ADC alive in that sense. But one good thing about Chernobog is that in 20 seconds or so, Coast can just fly back in and join the fight. With the Trebuchet and the Oni minions and the grouping of the Ravens, these tier 2 towers are not going to be long for this world. And because they got a minute 30, they're still in a position where they can group up for that left side Phoenix if they want to back up, spend some items one more time. But it would be a risky call, right? Because you just sort of just lost that fight. A lot of relics are down. With another boar like that bouncing around under Phoenix, you're asking for a pretty risky time to go for the Phoenix there. So I think probably the smarter play would be to set up for the enhanced Fire Giant and then look for that after the fact. But the Ravens are still grouped up just in case anyone steps up a little bit too far. This is where the CC really comes in handy, right? One person walks up too far, you get mezzed into a fear no evil, you're definitely not living much longer.
Yeah, it's 80 seconds till Spudio's beads, 75 seconds till Bevy Monsters. Two perfectly susceptible targets for adapting and silence to maybe find a couple to tempt to try and take one of them down. But I think you're saying it right, where if they know that there's a Kumba nearby, if they know that adapting is anywhere near, unlikely that the Niflheim Wargs will step too far out of position. So for this Phoenix Siege, you mentioned the strength that Spudio has. Is that really the main strength that the Wargs have on a defense? They have something else to be able that would help them kind of push the Ravens back?
No, I mean, Itori has clear for days, right? You just got big, spooky circles. That's what I'm going to call them. All of Merlin's abilities are big, spooky circles in this sense. When you're this late into the build, it's pretty much like, okay, the Merlin, like, you know, the big arcane stance came through. We have to wait for that to go down. Oh, now he's an ice stance. Okay, wait for the blizzard. Okay, now we can go in. But with this much CDR, with the upgraded Pendulum of Ages, it's pretty difficult to push in to both of these carries. Spudio can line the walls of the Phoenix with some traps. It's not easy. So I like the Ravens, sitting back, going for the enhanced Fire Giant first. After that power spike, then I imagine they feel much more confident going for these Phoenixes. And it looks like a full grouping of the Ravens in the enemy jungle. The Wargs are not stepping up. They know that enhanced Fire Giant doesn't spawn back in for 30 seconds, so they're not going to walk up for their buffs. They're not going to walk up just to ward. They're going to wait and stay together. Probably the smart call is the rest of the Ravens dive on back to get one more back in before this enhanced Fire Giant spawns back in. But all the relics should be up at this point. I mean, Sarpei's Blink comes up. Everything else is available for both of these teams. It's going to be a true 5v5. The only difference is the Ravens are up about 10k gold at this point.
But even with that 10,000 gold, I mean, kind of looking at how the builds are through, both hunters are finished out. Single tier difference between Itori and Angry. Junglers are both full build as well. It's mostly in that front line where we see a little bit of the discrepancy there. Fire Giant started up by the Highland Ravens. Bevy Monster here. Stun does not connect. Kana tries to get some aggression through, adapting, teleports in towards Bevy. The Fire Giant still not leashed yet. Silence holding on to it. Stun finds Bevy. The knockup finds him as well. But Kana will have to dash back in. Does lose his bubble to the enhanced Fire Giant. And that might just be enough for the Ravens to back away for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, Adapting doesn't have a Magice or anything, so getting his beads down is absolutely massive. Kana, as you said, loses the Magice bubble in the process, so Spudio's ult is just gaining value by the second. I mean, it seems like every step the Ravens take, they're putting themselves susceptible to getting 100-0'd by the CC chain of the Niflheim Wargs. They are grouped up sitting at the enhanced Fire Giant, however. They're not going to make any risky calls as Bevy Monster steps up, trying to find a grapple, trying to initiate a fight. But take a look at where Sarpei is, possibly looking to ambush adapting. Misses the knockup, and that means that fight's off. With the bubble, though, adapting can't go for the 1v1. You can't drop Fear No Evil onto the Magi's. It's just not going to net you anything. So Sarpei can get aggressive all he wants onto adapting. It just can't be, it can't be dished out the opposite way. Adapting has to save that ultimate for the team fight around the enhanced Fire Giant. And Sarpei still trying to wrap around here.
Kana pulled in. Bevy Monster needs to knock him in the stun, and a couple of roots after. Half HP on the Mulan, full HP on everybody else from the Ravens. And Sarpei again, just going for a split push option, recognizing he's not needed in the fight. But because he stepped so far away from the team, maybe an engage by the Highland Ravens. They're going to back away. Sarpei rejoins the top side of the jungle, at least around the mid lane. Highland Ravens playing very cautiously around this enhanced FG. Haven't been able to really find a good pick just yet. I mean, they got half HP on Bevy Monster in the last little skirmish, but that immediately got healed back up. And Bevy's going to teleport his way back in. Now it's Kha'Zix who's being focused down. There's a lot of his health gone. Riptide will find his way out. Bevy Monster into the backline along with Sarpei. Fear No Evil does get the Magi's and the beads away. And now relics are down for both the support and the jungler of the Niflheim Wargs.
Yeah, Sarpei was able to have the huge wraparound there from the Ravens jungle. gets Angry into the home sweet home, and then immediately Angry has to cancel into the Aegis, so not too much damage getting off in that case. Spudio's ultimate was forced well before that fight, so I thought the Ravens would have a decent time, but because of the wraparound from Sarpé, because a lot of the damage was stopped in that sense, it looks like we're going to see a full disengage from both of these teams, and now the Ravens I mean, you can go for a pull onto the Pyromancer at this point. Gold Fury has spawned back in, but no one's really in a position to go for the EFG just yet. And to your point, I imagine Itori getting pretty close to finishing up that last item. Bevy Monster probably still needs a little bit more to finish that item as well, but it's just going to be the poke game. I mean, someone has to step up too far eventually. We were talking about it before this game even started, right? The Wargs have to get used to these 35-minute fights, these 30-plus minute fights where one person steps up a little bit too far, one person takes a little bit too much damage, could be some trouble. Bevy Monster in that position, but no real burst to try and burn through this Mulan's HP. And it looks like going to be just fine. Adapting is taking the 1v1 versus Sarpé, and it's close.
Oh, I wouldn't say so, as Adapting is able to get some help with Coast to take a pick up onto Sarpé. That is now the Pele out of the fight for the next minute. And is that enough window of opportunity for the Highland Ravens to the enhanced Fire Giant? They go. Bevy Monster being slowly poked out. Itori, the best chance that the Wargs have to maybe go for a steal. Fire Giant is at half HP. It's just Coast dealing damage to it right now. Itori steps up. Does have the transform. Switches over into the ice stance. Drops the Blizzard down, but Bevy Monster step too far forward. And Adapting picks up a second kill in the fight. Staggered cooldown timers between the solo laner, between the jungler, and maybe even the hunter. It's two now for Adapting in this fight to jump in. And an ultimate from Kha'Zix will make sure that the Yamoja lives for another day. But the Fire Giant is still being held by Silence. He never let go. The true support of the Highland Ravens keeps the Fire Giant alive, and now all five get the buff.
I mean, Silence used the shell, and I mean, had the sleepy time passive, but wanted to save it for the Phoenix Siege after the fact. Did not let that enhanced Fire Giant goes down. And hey, it's all about the quickness now, because Sarpé's back up, sure, but you still got 25 seconds without Bevy, 34 seconds without Spudio. You're going to be just fine going for at least the right side, Phoenix. That one's going to go pretty freely. Do you feel confident enough to go for the end here? Ultimates are coming back up, but it looks like the Ravens are going to play this one smart. Go for the Phoenix in the meantime and try to get all three birds down before they look to siege the Titan. Sarpé's behind, but I don't imagine wants to go in. Probably just wants to stall out a bit of this enhanced Fire Giant until the rest of the team spawns back in. And the Ravens are going to back up as well. Remember, they have to the sky, so it's pretty easy for them to just get on top of the Titan, get on top of the Phoenix. They can fly wherever they really want to, so now it's all up to the Wargs. They probably go for a group up play in the enemy jungle, try and bring the fight to the Ravens, because they're not in a really great position to defend their base with two birds down. And it looks like that is the call. Group up in the enemy jungle, see if someone steps up a little bit too far. I imagine the Ravens have seen this play 1,000 times by now, and they're not going to step out too much without Connor or Silence leading the charge.
I wonder if Kana saw Bevy go into the mist.
Oh, here goes.
Pings towards it. Mez does find one. Is this the end of the line for Bevy Monster? Gets a small dash through. Silence grabs the epic uppercut onto Kha'Zix. Fear no evil. Will catch out Spudio, and Adapting finds his 6th kill of the game. Can he make it 7 onto Sarpé, who is all alone in the back line? There he goes down to Vaporous Coast, and Kana gonna transport his team a little further up in towards the map. We'll get a little bit past the Gold Fury, but now all 5 on the run. Only 3 left to defend against the Phoenix.
Yeah, it seems like Itori's gonna clear the wave, but remember, this is enhanced Fire Giant. The wave does not matter. Itori just wasting time at the moment, and the rest of the Ravens proving pretty confident to go for this left side Phoenix and then go for the end onto the Titan. They got plenty of damage, J-Mac. This is going down quick.
3 versus 5. Kha'Zix ult slows down the fight right away, but it's still 5 of the Highland Ravens. Bevy Monster dashes out, gets an ultimate. Titan not taking a ton of damage, but Kha'Zix is. Vaporous Coast gets 1. Bevy Monster stunned. Will not make it 2 just yet. Silence holding on to the Titan. Will pull it away for the time being, but Titan should go down. Highland Ravens in just over 38 minutes will take game number 1.
I want you to subtract like 3k damage from Angry and probably like 5k from Coast. They were farming there in the well at the end, but besides that, pretty clean gameplay from the Ravens. This is sort of what we've come to expect from them. maybe a little bit of aggression in the early from the Wargs. They got that goal lead. They were in the driver's seat until about 15, 16 plus minutes. And then after that, the Ravens were able to find picks here and there, and they were able to build that goal lead back in their favor, and especially the objective play. Certainly going over the Ravens. But props to the Wargs, though. They were able to stall that one out for sure in a position where 10K gold down, you'd think that Fire Giant fight would be pretty cleanly in favor of the Ravens. So I think the Wargs, with a couple tweaks in this comp and a couple tweaks in their play style, that could have easily been a Wargs victory.
Started out well for the Wargs, but ended better for the Highland Ravens. They take game number 1. We'll see if the Ravens can keep that trend up in game number 2 coming up right after this break.
My mate, hey, you made a permanent home in my head. You moving like a goddess, come my way, my way, my way. Your hips on the move, only a real one can do what you do. I caught a body, but you was the shooter. Yeah, shot me down one time. Now you wanna hug me down long time. Funny how the love can change sometimes. So we say, hey, back off a bago. I'm pulling up on you. Let me show you my world. She told me that I make her feel alive. I can see the goodness in your eyes. We can take a trip, just you and I. You got it. Oh en América. Quiero bambino contigo, ma. Te beso bien suave en el limón, ma. Quiero con vino, limón, no sal. Tu cuerpo es un carnaval, yeah. Tus ojos trascendental, y tu espíritu natural. Me enamora con besos en el piñal, yeah. De África al tropical, nuestro amor es transnacional. Lo que tenemos presidencial, aquí la vista es espectacular. I can see the goodness in your eyes. We can take a trip, just you and I. You got it. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Can't wait to show you off. Come out, I'm pulling up. Come out, I'm pulling up, yeah.
Game 1 started off well for the Niflheim Wargs, but unfortunately it's the Highland Ravens who are able to bring themselves back up into the limelight and take game number 1. And Charlie, a lot of that really felt like, again, it was starting out well for the Wargs. They were able to find some early picks. Most of them, though, were over into the Soul Lane. Kind of got a little bullied, a little focused in the early game. Mm-hmm. But once we started getting these rotations over towards places around the Gold Fury pit, around these Pyromancers, that's when we see the Highland Ravens start to get their grouping, start to find some of those pushbacks, and that's where we see them then start to take the lead.
Yeah, and it seemed like the team fight presence that the Ravens had drafted for themselves off the back of the Hunbats, the Kumbhakarna, and as you said, the Horus. Kana was able to be the initiator in those fights if Silence wasn't able to get to there. But either way, whenever the follow-up came through, it was usually enough to make sure that the damage was a little bit too much. So I think the Ravens waited until late game pretty well, and the Wargs unfortunately just were not able to capitalize on it. We saw some pretty decent plays from Sarpe as the game went on. Despite, Sarpe got active very early as we saw in solo lane, but even late game, some clutch wraparounds, was able to stall out that game where it should have probably ended maybe 5-10 minutes earlier, but because this Pele was consistently getting to the backline and just doing tons of damage, it was enough to really force this into a 30-40 minute game, that sort of thing. So, definitely props to that Pele for getting the Wargs to this point, but unfortunately the Ravens were just a little bit too far ahead at that point, right? 10k gold lead with EFG, a little bit too hard to come back from in this day and age.
Yeah, even if you are, 40 minutes into the game and that 10k doesn't really matter as much at that point because everybody's essentially full builds. There are still obviously some of those power potions that can go through and really make a bit of a difference there. The 007 for the Ravens mid laner, angry on the Baba Yaga. Couldn't find a kill, able to get 7 of the 11, at least in the assist column for himself. Curious as to where some of his damage kind of ended out, because, again, angry early game, didn't really do much. So Baba Yaga, you don't really expect a whole lot of damage late game. Finished second highest on his team, Vay Porsche Coast, rounding out the top of the chart there. Angry just slightly above Itori and Spudio as well. Though I think I remember you recalling
we have to
take a couple thousand damage off just because of the late game bullying inside the fountain. But even still, Highland Ravens able to take game number 1 over the top, at least of the Niflheim Wargs. And again, this comes down to the struggles we've been talking about the Wargs, where they're a good team to start early games. They're a good team to get the ball rolling early. The problem is they've been struggling to find these transitions into the mid game, into the late game. We'll see if maybe they can draft something up to try and help that a little bit as we jump into picks and bans for game number 2 between the Wargs and the Ravens. Was there anything maybe in the draft of the Wargs that you think could have been kind of changed out there to give themselves maybe a better fighting chance?
I mean, I would say that they did pretty well about getting, in my opinion, a pretty late game slotted draft online early, right? They had the gold lead. You'd think the Artemis and the Merlin would need a little bit more time, but they were playing it quite well that they were able to get that lead. Unfortunately, I think Spudio fell a little bit behind because Coast was getting so aggressive on the Chernobog, so I wouldn't be surprised if trying to deal with some of either that global presence or getting Spudio on a character that can fight into that Chernobog early, because Artemis surely can, and she has that hard carry potential, but it just seemed like 2-3 levels down in the early, made sure that Spudio wasn't able to help out during these early Gold Fury fights. You would pretty much just drop the boar and then die or something along those lines. So getting Spudio on something more aggressive and or taking away that Chernobog could be a step that they try to go for.
No changes in the bans this time. Khepri, Yu Huang, and Guan Yu still for the Wargs. Ratatosker, Hades, Da Ji still for the Highland Ravens. That leaves Umoja up, and Umoja will be grabbed right away by the Wargs. Chernobog was the first pick the last time around for the Ravens in this spot. Gotta imagine that Coast will probably want to go back towards that pick once again after his performance, and he does so. So Chernobog one more time for the Highland Ravens in their top two. And is this a trade that you're willing to make if you're the Niflheim Wargs? You get Yamoja, you get one of the best supports in your role, but you're also giving away such a powerful hunter. Do you think that's a worthwhile trade out for the Wargs?
Well, it looks like they thought so. I don't know if I would agree just because it was very annoying to deal with the global presence, but one answer you could have to that is get some global presence of your own, I guess semi-global in that sense. So grabbing the Thor to try and deal with Coast, you know, he can fly across the map. Thor can also kind of fly across the map, so I like the idea. It looks like let that through, but we will see a bit of a change-up in the Ravens composition as well, with the Terra being locked in. So going to get some extra healing, not going to have that Kumbhakarna, not going to have that abundance of CC, but Terra's got a fair amount of CC of her own, and I guess, you know, for all things considered, it also could be going over towards that solo lane. You know, we've seen Terra solo played every once in a while. It does do some decent damage, so I guess also Kana could pilot it, but for my money, because we usually see Terra in the support role, probably going over into the hands of iSilenced.
Now, I unfortunately can't check far enough back to see who was the other only person to play Baba Yaga so far in EU, but 4 out of the 5 games that it has been played up till this point have been played by Angry over on this team, and he's won 3 out of the 4 times that he's had it so far. So only one other player has got this got out here. The Ravens definitely going to make sure they can hold on to that one there. Cucullin. So a little bit of a change up across the board for the Ravens, at least in their frontliners. Terra and Cucullin going to be changing out in place of the Horus and the Kumbhakarn from last time. Hunter's Band away, Cupid and Artemis on the side of the Ravens, leaves Jingwei open. And Jungler Bands, Fenrir and Hunbat's taken away, but I'm still looking at the fact that adapting can maybe just go towards this Pele that was on the opposite side last time.
It certainly could be the play, and actually the Wargs are going to grab that Horus for themselves, so a ton of global presence that they have. Their team fight is going to be all over the place, I imagine, but it also means that if you're not making great use out of those ultimates, you're only using it for mobility, your team fight might lack a little bit in that sense, but looks like the adapting set coming in last pick here. One of the hardest carrying junglers you can really have. Pretty high skill cap. You got to make sure you're using those clones and that skewer and that Kingslayer ultimate as well as you can. But if you do, the damage output can be absurd on this character. So looks like the Ravens are also playing for a late game a little bit. They've got some early presence here and there, but probably waiting to get those items online and go for that 30-35 minute team fight.
Niflheim Wargs versus the Highland Ravens. Game number 2. Can the Wargs claw their way back in, find game number 2, and take us to a third? Or the Highland Ravens going to keep their undefeated record and take themselves to a 3-0 set start to this phase? Remember, very important for every single one of these matches for the team, because this affects their seeding moving into their Road to Worlds tournament that'll take place later on this year, where it'll be all 6 of the SCC teams and the top 2 SOC teams that will then be eliminated down to just a few to try and face off for a couple coveted spots for the SMITE World Championship. So every single set win you can get now is very important to give yourself the best chance in your Road to Worlds tournament.
Yeah, and I think the Wargs have drafted some early presence. I put a lot of weight on a Sarpe last game on that Pele, and I have to echo that once again. This Thor is going to have to be pretty on point to make sure to set up for the rest of the team, or just look for, big backline dive. Because that Anvil of Dawn, not always the easiest to land, and as long as your double taps are hitting, and you can hit the wall as well, there is still a good amount of damage to be done. But late game, if you're not making use out of that ultimate, you're not really making the full use out of the kit. Kana could be in some trouble here if the double tap connects, and it doesn't. Good sidestep means that this solo laner will live to see another day. And while that was happening, Adapting was able to grab that Totem of Ku. So a little bit of extra pressure going over to the Ravens early on, but Kana doesn't have too much HP, probably going to be sitting under tower for a little bit longer at least.
Sarpe ported in towards his hammer to try and steal the Scorpion away from Adapting. We'll throw out the global emote at him just to say, ha, that was mine. You don't get it, and you don't get to get the fight afterwards either. Okana, no stranger to the pressure. I mean, this happened to him last game. A lot of focus out of Sarpe and Bevy to shut him down whenever he was playing the Horus. This time around, though, it's Bevy on the Horus. Kana piloting this Cucullin, going for a little bit of a different start. Tainted Steel to try and deal with a lot of the sustain that this team is going to have. You look across, Bevy and Kha'Zix both going to be primary healers for this team. No surprise seeing maybe at least a little bit of early anti-heal. Got to imagine Angry's probably going to have that similar build style in his path, probably Divine Ruin very early.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just the Warlocks and a Divine, then the Karons once again. The Baba Yaga build doesn't have too much diversity. You got the free stacks, so you might as well build into them because they're just top of the meta items at the moment. So probably right to highlight that's the way they're looking for. But I think an interesting style of pick for adapting is the set because it plays a lot like the Hunbats in the sense of, yeah, you can try to get active in the early. You have the damage to do so, but really you're looking for that level 5. You're looking for that Kingslayer. Then you can really make those meaningful rotations. And I think set a lot better in the duo lane ganks because in solo lane you don't have too much lane to run down with that ultimate. I think the longer you're in that Kingslayer with the Sandstorm active, spawning in those set clones, the more value you're getting out of that ultimate. So going to the long lane, it just makes sense. You have much longer to run down, especially if the wargs are posted up about halfway to the halfway point. They have to go a long way to try to run away from that set. So same sort of style we saw last game. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw Adapt and get active. On the left side of the map, only issue this time around is Spudio's on Jing Wei instead of Artemis. That's going to be a much safer pick, especially up against a set. You just go into that airstrike, fly away, and usually you don't really have to deal with the chase after the fact. So maybe that's going to be enough just to say, hey, we can't really get active in that lane as Kana takes a ton of damage, but it's able to juke the last tick of that updraft. That would have been a very clean kill for Bevy Monster early on.
Nice use holding on to that leap to make sure he could get away, because I think you're right, maybe if that updraft does connect, that could very well be first blood on the solo laner once again. But for Kana, going for some extra HP early on instead, as he picks up the second tier of the Emerald. Is he going in towards Stone of Gaia here?
Yeah,
just for,
that's got to. That's the only item.
Yeah, Stone of Gaia for the solo laner Kana.
So Bevy knocks you up, you get some nice
extra heals. Hey, a little bit of counter to him. It's like, all right, you want to throw that up? Well, let's get a little bit of extra HP for myself.
I sort of miss when the meta was just, oh, hold that thought. We do have an ultimate here. Kana doesn't connect with the ult. Looks like will. Well, if that Anvil of Dawn hits, maybe you get a chain stun there, but the ult was off the mark, so Kana lives to see another day. But I sort of miss just like Greaves into Stone of Gaia, man. That was a fun little meta because then you just had unkillable solo laners early on.
Yeah, that's real fun.
Yeah.
In solo, you just you pick up Greaves, you pick up Stone of Gaia. Ooh man, try killing me. I thought you were gonna go with something else there for a moment. Now, if you want a meta that I miss, now this is just a little bit toxic me. I miss the Hunter meta where it was Greaves and Witchblade.
Ew, why?
That to me was a fun one, because then that was just which of your hunters can hit more autos in that case, because you're both only hitting for like 40 damage to each other. Ultimate into the dual lane, stun off the mark by Silence. No more mana to his name, so he cannot continue that chase inward. So that should be the end of that fight. But Spuddy and Kha'Zix both have theirs. Could be an easy reinitiation for the duo if they choose.
Yeah, looks like just going for the purple buff in that sense. I'm not going to be looking to fight any longer at this point, but what about Golden Blade Hunters?
No, it can stay gone forever.
you don't miss the 5% crit chance at level 1. You could just possibly get a crit and just win lane off of that.
Look, we got one really cool moment from an SPL, which was the crit heard round the world from Oceans. That made a really hype play.
Yep.
But outside of that, no, because at that point, there was no matchup in dual lane that mattered because you just cleared the wave guaranteed as a hunter every single time.
Yeah, but then you can also go for the auto crit into impale and look really cool every once in a while. You know, that's what it was for. That was the whole point. Then you could just say, yeah, I knew it was going to crit.
So you can replicate the one really cool play that happened.
The one really cool play. It's like, yeah, I meant to do that. That was I was counting on the 5%. I had it calculated. I ran the odds in my head.
The odds were in my favor only that one time. I tried another 15, but this is the one that actually finally stuck.
I mean, as long as it works once, it's all you need, but it looks like Bevy will channel that to the skies and get away from the gank from adapting. Holds on to Kingslayer, so didn't use the ultimate to try and get that burst kill, and probably smart for it because Bevy Monster was able to fly out with a pretty good chunk of HP in that sense. But now it looks like trying to get aggressive onto Sarpei. Has to use the beads. Hammer should be up and doesn't want to get caught out with it. Actually, no, the Hammer's not going to be coming through finally. And Adapting wants to chase this one down. Uses the Kingslayer.
Drops it. But unless his team is there, man, it gets the ultimate away from Sarpei, so that's actually massive. Anvil of Dawn now down. But it'll be a disengage by Sarpei. Definitely does not want to go in, even though he does have a Yamoja standing by as some defense. The burst damage coming from Adapting, maybe a little too threatening for Sarpei to dump back in.
Yeah, probably the smart call. Especially if adapting to like pre-beats and skewers, you're just gonna look silly. Because you know, so when I play Thor, even if I'm ulting out, I like to land in, then hammer out immediately. But if someone's paying attention, that's not gonna work every time. You just get immediately killed on landing. So definitely the smart call. Some ultimates down, some relics down. Notably, Sarpei's beads won't be up for about 2 minutes, and that's going to be the big one, right? If you find this Thor with hammer down, or you're able to catch that hammer with some of your CC, could be pretty annoying, and Sarpei could be put into a rough spot, so I don't imagine too many aggressive ultimates, unless it's over in solo lane trying to catch Kana out, because not too much damage built is the Kakulin with Stone of Gaia and Tainted Steel. Either way, I do like seeing the aggression from both teams, you know, constant fights, constant ganks. Only on the right side of the map, though. Coast and Spudio have been left alone on an island. They're stacking their Transcendence. They're Chernobog and Jingwei. I mean, this is shouts out to, what, Masters, the first Masters? Like,
oh, man,
that's
you're
it
right.
was just Chernobog, Jingwei meta. That's all it was. The builds are a little different, but these are the picks we were seeing.
The Hunter meta is just a circle. We're just back on the rotation through. Now we need. No, actually, the way that we come full circle is if we end up back on a Medusa and Cernunnos meta.
Yep. And then it's just you on the moon, and you're like, Hunter meta never. It's
actually,
Hunter meta again, and I say.
You know, thinking about it though, Cernunnos is kind of coming back. We've been seeing Wowie play a lot of the Medusa because of the healer meta.
Yep.
Maybe we do see that dual lane come full circle. Ultimate from Spudio. He'll have to get out. Kha'Zix's ult is just to cut off the path, so his Hunter will be fine. Silenced, trembled along the way. Sarpei goes in for a gank towards Kana, uses his ultimate aggressively on Bevimonsta, jump in with the leap. Bevimonsta trying to get out, but Adapting's got too much damage on the rotation in, and Sarpei forced to Anvil of Dawn his way in towards the jungle, maybe a tower, wherever he feels safest, because Adapting is on the hunt. Kingslayer available, but Adapting not going to dive into the tier 2.
Oh, I really wanted to see it, and it looks like Adapting is just checking that speed buff in the drop the set clone just to make sure that Sarpei wasn't going for the lazy back underneath the tower, but was a little bit too far away. Not going to spot that one out. So first blood does go the way of the Ravens, and I think if Sarpei's wall wasn't blocking off Adapting there, maybe finds a second kill before that Anvil of Dawn gets off. But I think Kana played that super well also, because you know you're getting ganked by Sarpei. Instead of jumping out, you realize, hey, Adapting calls, hey, I'm on the way, we can fight this. Use that Salmon Leap in, get the Rage Transformation, force out the ultimate from Bevy, and kill before you go up into the skies and are able to escape. So now the Ravens will have a sizable gold lead in their favor, about 1.4k, even before that Pyromancer spawns back in, and it looks like the XP echoing that as well. So I do want to see just the same thing I said last game about the Wargs. I mean, when you have a lead like this, it's all about what you do with it. Are you going to be looking for these objectives, try and find some rotations? And it looks like because of the way that these ADCs have itemized, they don't really have Gold Fury Burn build just yet. Pyromancer probably a smart call at the moment.
So how do we come full circle back to the start of the year with the rest of the roles? We figured out for the Hunters, we need Cernunnos, Medusa.
Yep.
We need what? Thoth and Agni for mid? Something like that?
Yeah, Thoth was definitely...
Thoth was definitely a big one. Solo lane, we need the auto attackers.
I mean, there's no way, right? Because 9-5 happened and then everything changed. Like that's when all of the flat pen builds started going away and Warlocks became meta. So
Flat pen got buffed recently.
Yeah, and people aren't building it. I mean, you still see Warlocks, man. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
look, man, Warlocks is just good.
That's what I'm saying. I sat down with Pagon. I said, hey, man, Flat Pen got buffed. He's like, no, you still got to build Warlocks or you're behind. And I was like, oh, man, okay. So, I mean, yeah, it would be nice, but I mean, I guess it wouldn't. People don't like Thoth meta. And by I don't mean Book of Thoth meta. I mean literal, like, Thoth, the character meta. As far as I know. I mean, very vocal about, you know, Thoth.
I like watching Thoth. I don't like playing against Thoth. I'll tell you that much.
I think his kit does involve a lot of finesse, but people don't like to get hit from halfway across the map when they can't also hit from halfway across the map. So I've been told.
For like 2,000 damage late game by a Final Judgment. Swings. We could maybe see the auto attackers return to solo lane. That was part of the meta back then. But Pyromancer for the Highland Ravens. You were saying, what can they do with their lead? Well, so far, they're just going to keep pushing that lead up. 2,500 golden XP for the Highland Ravens off the back of a single kill. And a blue buff invade, stunned by Sarpei, trying to secure this blue buff.
Ooh.
And they do so. Niflheim Wargs don't lose out on the buff, but Angry loses out on a lot of his HP. The burn damage from Itori, keeping this mid laner at bay. Angry will be forced to go back to base. Maybe enough golden hand to pick up this tier 3 item, though, and get his first full flat pen item online. It does seem to be so, as Divine Ruin is locked in for the Baba Yaga.
Yep, and then right into what seems to be a possible hold that thought. Doesn't matter what I'm going to say because the Wargs are going for the Gold Fury call. Remember, they tried this last time, and Angry was the one who stopped it, but it's just Coast trying to go for the 50-50 here. He's the only one who can stop this, and it looks like Sarpe with the ult should be able to confirm it.
They're holding on. That's close.
I was going to say, that was so slow.
That is close, but you could see they were trying to play. They were waiting for the timing of that crystallized curse that came from Vapor's coach, just sitting out there staring on their ground. And I think they panicked for a moment, like,
yeah.
Is it going to explode?
Should we reset? Like, what do we do?
do we break it now? Do we risk it? And they end up breaking it just before the pop goes through. So Niflheim Wargs will grab the Fury. That gives them about a 1,000 gold up now. So only 1,500 behind as opposed to their 25. But is that enough for the Wargs? Is this one objective enough to slow down the Ravens? Or Charlie, do you feel the Ravens still have the momentum in their favor?
I mean, the Ravens certainly have the momentum, I think, because, you know, the Wargs were able to sneak that and get out. That's a good play. But now, you know, there's not much else up, right? I don't imagine, unless Sarpe seems some really solid gank opportunity over in solo lane, like it looks like Sarpe does see. But adapting is here. If the hammer goes down, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some aggression onto Sarpe, and here comes adapting.
Adapting crashing in. Beads are gone. And the rest of his relics down as well. Adapting and Kana can make a clean kill on one, and Coach joins the party to make it a 3 versus 2, and now 2 down for the Niflheim Wargs. 3 kills total for the Highland Ravens to start this game out. And some pressure over towards mid as Silence is rotated in. But the Ravens still hot, even after losing that Fury.
Yeah, they didn't care about the Gold Fury. It's the kills thereafter, and they're going for them extremely cleanly. Props to Coast. I don't think, I mean, you know, Sarpe definitely dies if Coast doesn't come through, but Bevy Monster definitely does not because Adapting was so focused on trying to kill Sarpe. Unfortunate for the Thor, you lose both relics, and you still die there. So that means for the next 2 minutes or so, it's very difficult to try and get aggressive, try and use this Anvil of Dawn, and get your team ahead. It's just not going to come easy. And also, Bevy Monster pretty far behind in this lane. That was the lane that Sarpe kept sort of going to look to get aggressive, so I don't imagine there's going to be any more ganks towards that solo lane. And because Coast has been so effective, you know, how far up is the Chernobog going to push before you can really find a feasible gank? I don't envy the position that Sarpe's in. Maybe you're just sitting back, farming as much as possible until these objectives start spawning back in, because without that, you don't have any clear targets for Anvil of Dawn. It's certainly not easy to try and influence the team until a team fight occurs, because those lane ganks aren't looking too clean for the Thor at the moment.
It's been a bit of a struggle for Sarpe. Hasn't really gotten to use an ultimate aggressively.
Yeah.
Except towards the objective. He definitely slammed that objective hard earlier
he did.
on. Take that Gold Fury down.
And then they didn't DPS. That's what I said. Like, he ulted, and then they just stopped. Like, wait, what if? Don't touch it.
Oh, wait, you're here? Do we need to do any more damage? No, you got it yourself, but with the staggered cooldowns of the objectives, Pyromancer are set to spawn in just a little over a minute. And the Highland Ravens can definitely push their way over if they get a couple people to rotate over that direction. But with Sarpe so far down, again, has not been able to use those ultimates to actively try and fight against the Ravens. Have used it defensively every single time when a team fight has come around. So if they can find a moment, that being the Niflheim Wargs, and specifically Sarpe, if Sarpe can find a moment to get that ultimate through and really get an offensive play for his team, could be a massive team fight turnaround.
Yeah, certainly could be. It really just depends on where that fight's taking place. At the moment, the Ravens looking to get some ward vision on where the Pyromancer spawns in and possibly look towards this blue buff. Sarpe was able to steal it away last time, but will Sarpe even get a chance? Kana just W-keying at the Thor as that blue buff goes down. So even more XP and gold going in favor of the Ravens as Kana gets poked down a fair bit, but doesn't look like any more follow-up coming from the Wargs. Something I've noticed about Adapting's builds, he's one of the few people that consistently goes towards this Bloodforge. He's a Bloodforge bandit. He got it last game on the Hunbats,
Yeah,
and it looks like
he got like 6 slot last time.
This time he's going for it even earlier. He wants to continue the team fight. I think it works very well with Set's kit because, oh, hold that thought, Bevy Monster does go into the ultimate, should be able to get out just in time. But, you know, the Set, you're diving the backline. If you get the kill, it's sort of like a pseudo Kali reset, right? You get more HP, you get to continue diving, but without that HP shield, maybe you're just backing up and saying, like, okay, the fight's over. So Adapting values it a little bit earlier on in this game, but the movement speed's also nice, you know, getting some extra movement speed from Bloodforge, some power. All of those things going to help well, synergize well with the kit. as that Pyromancer spawns in and immediately goes away. But this Primal Fury, that's got to be on the eyes of both of these teams. Unfortunate for Sarpe. The wall hits, but not the double tap after the fact. The Riptide's going to catch Coast.
Oh, does not. Make it to the sky. Sarpe dunks in onto Angry, gets the home sweet home away. So the Niflheim Wargs find their first strike in the game. But can they find something more? Fury's about to respawn. Coast is down for 35. It's a perfect opportunity if the Wargs want to grab an objective. But it seems that with Silence and Angry nearby, the Wargs are unwilling to start at the objective just yet. They'll stare at the Primal. They're not going to pull quite yet. Sarpe caught by Silence on the stun, but Silence now uses his double dash. Needs some help from his teammate. He's got a big ultimate from Kana to help him out. River's Rebuke will separate the team fight, but with Angry standing by, it's 5 versus 3 with Bevy Monson now in lane and adapting on rotation in. Fury be damned. The Highland Ravens are going for the fight.
Yeah, it looks like they want to get active because Coast spawns back in, can easily fly towards that objective if the rest of the team was grouped up, but not going to be the case because the Wargs were able to get out. And you know what, I'm gonna roast Coast a little bit here. That was just over-aggression, right? He goes to the purple buff, he sees 3 members, he's like, oh, you're still level 14 Thor? I'm just gonna fight you instead. Beautiful Riptide pulls him back in, then he realizes, like, wait a second, I actually have to get out, tries to go up into the sky, does not make it out in time. Pretty sure he could have just beads and walked out, but he wanted to try and turn a little bit of damage. So that Chernobog going down, pretty massive for the Wargs. Unfortunately, as you said, they were not able to translate that into a Primal Fury, so now it's just gonna be a full-on reset where the Ravens still pretty far up gold-wise. And because they're grouped here, should be able to go for the Primal Fury themselves or at least bait in a fight towards this objective. But Spudio's going to go for the pull. And here comes Silence and Kana to stop that out. I was going to say, unless you got someone tanking for you, it's not going to be easy to make the call. And they're going for it. They're going to start the pull. I don't imagine they commit to this, though. Their burst is just not there.
Kana found 4 with his ult last time. Find any more. Primal Fury stopped right away. And a reset by the Niflheim Wargs and the Highland Ravens. Adapting and Sarpe duking out in the mid lane just a little bit. I don't know why. Maybe I get a chance to say that thought? Maybe I do. Whenever you said roast coast, for some reason my mind went Space Ghost coast to coast, and now I'm thinking Space Ghost roast the coast.
I thought it was just a nice roast, you know, like a roast coast, and then it was like, you know, like a food. You know, like a pot roast or like a roast coast.
Okay, I got you. I got you now. But instead, like the roast is like a seafood base because it's on the coast.
Yeah, but now it looks like
the Primal Fury
Fury's getting roasted a bit, as the rest of the Wargs are just gone. They don't care about this at all. They tried to go for their pull, weren't able to grab it, and the Highland Ravens grab it cleanly. I saw the aggression towards the right side of the map, and I was like, there's no way you're doing Fire Giant without your ADC. Spudio's on the other side, so Greater Scorpion, that was the consolation prize of the Primal Fury. So the Ravens still very much in command of this game. And it's pretty much, usually it plays like this. Coast gets level 20, then rotates over, we look for a Fire Giant. Still level 18, fell a little bit behind because of that gank, so I don't imagine there's going to be any Fire Giant pulled just yet. And because of the way that Chernobog is pathing towards left lane, that does seem to stay true. They're going to wait a little bit longer. Wait for that upgraded starter item, and then you can get a little bit more aggressive on this right side of the map. But XP certainly does look clean for the Highland Ravens. It's not easy for a level 17 Thor to get to the backline at this point when the carries are doing so much damage to you. And this level 19 set has been doing a ton of damage whenever adapting does try to get aggressive. So, you know, the Wargs probably smart to stay back a bit, not look for too much aggression until the Ravens initiate it on these objectives.
Whew. Sarpe's HP. Poke from Angry, only 3 items in. Starting to rear its head just to see how much this Baba Yaga is capable of. It's on the Kazakhs. Potion and the magic after. Deals some decent damage. Adapting. Teleports in. Finds the skewer just onto Itori. That won't do too much to slow down the Wargs. In fact, it might even be enough to poke them away from the Tier 1 tower. That's being tanked up by Silence. Stun once again finds Coast. Tier 1 tower goes down. And the Highland Ravens continue their onslaught. Have been sitting on these 3 kills for a while now. Haven't found anything more, but it has been an easy climb for the Highland Ravens. Maybe see if the Wargs can turn something around. Bevy finds the stun onto 1, but not much more than there. Spudio forces the airstrike, and into the sky goes Bevy to try and disengage the rest of the team, but Spudio has been met by Vapor's Coast. Spudio slammed against the wall. Vapor's Coast finds the first kill. It's a dunk in the back by Sarpe, but has he run too far? The hammer is gone, and Coast has picked up the double kill. Maybe a triple now that Bevy has joined the fray. Adapting will grab that one away from the carry, but 3 for the Ravens and a push to the right side towards Fire Giant.
Yeah, it looks like that Fire Giant should be going down pretty cleanly as well because the rest of the Wargs are going back to base. But, you know, it started out with a little bit of aggression. It seemed like Spudio was like, hey, I'm a level 20 Jingwei. I can get aggressive. I can dash in. Immediately met with, oh no, I'm gonna airstrike out of here and try to escape. But Coast has that ult and was easily able to chase that one down. And unfortunate, Kha'Zix dropped the River's Rebuke almost to wall off those autos from Coast, and it would have been clean, but it was not enough. And unfortunately, Spudio gets stuck, not able to make it out of that one. And a clean series of kills for the Highland Ravens was 3-1, now 6-1. They've got plenty of time to try and go for this right side. Phoenix, Sarpei does not have the ultimate up and adapting, just going to play zone duty while this right side bird does fall down. Probably a full-on disengage after that, though, because the Ravens, they got a lot of gold they want to spend, pushing towards that 10K gold lead they had last time, and pretty much around the same time frame, right? I think it was about 27 minutes or so when the Ravens finally had that 10K gold lead. Now, looking at 22 minutes. Only 6 kills, though. I mean, it hasn't been too much aggression, but constant map farming, constant objective pressure. We saw the Wargs get active on the Gold Fury one time, and they didn't even pull it. It was a half pull into the reset. And that was pretty much it. You know, we saw Coast try to go for the steal. They got that first objective, but after that, it has been all Ravens, and they plenty of power spikes that they're about to grab here. We're seeing some relic upgrades there for Kana, trying to get that blink on a shorter cooldown. It looks like Angry about to tick over to level 20. Getting that upgraded relic would be huge. I mean, the upgraded starter item. Adapting gets Protector of the Jungle, but I mean, at this point, you're going to be fighting under Phoenix or under Tier 2 towers, so you're not going to get the value until later on. Doesn't really matter, though. Just some extra damage. Going to be helping the Highland Ravens on that siege.
The ultimate question, though, Trelly. Will Angry get a kill this set? Finished 0-0-7 last time. 0-0-2 right now. Maybe hope for him he can find at least one kill.
Nah, man.
Otherwise, he'll be the perfect support slash line.
I think he's just playing Ganesh. I mean, it looks like Baba Yaga, but really he's been Ganesh the whole time.
We've actually changed Ganesh, Baba Yaga's passive. The house is actually the one that gets the kills and not Baba Yaga.
So yeah, that's why he's not been able to confirm any kills just yet. I don't imagine any Phoenix sieging will occur until Adapting gets that Tier 2 tower in mid. And then the siege on this left side Phoenix can begin. But all ultimates are available. It looks like Sarpei's beads down for another 5 seconds or so, but besides that, everyone's ready to get engaged. And actually, Adapting is solo pushing in the mid lane, daring Sarpei to take the 1v1. Maybe waiting to see someone step up a little bit too far. Finally, the Trebuchet has joined, and the Highland Ravens can start going for this left side bird.
Spudio poked. But fine.
Oh my
what
gosh!
In the world?
That was no relics.
Adapting just destroyed Sarpei, and now the fight is staggered, and it's all in favor of the Ravens immediately. The ultimate from Bevy to disengage. Mid Phoenix, left Phoenix down. Highland Ravens, with a single pick, are pushing into the throne room, but do they have the DPS to do it? The River's Rebuke will cut off the damage towards it. Kana eating up a lot of damage from the Titan. Half HP on the final objective for the Ravens. Can they burn it down? Adapting will pull it back around. Silenced holding on, but the HP of Coast maybe a little bit too low for the Ravens to keep in. Itori needs one hit, just a little shy with the Eclipse to grab the kill on towards the carry. The Highland Ravens can back away and get some healing back up.
Yeah, it looks like Coast does have the ultimate, though, if he wants to try and ult in and end this game with the rest of the team. And that might be the call. The Chernobog should be able to go back here and join the rest of the squad. Looks like Kana has the teleport, and they're going to go for it. Doesn't even need the ultimate from Coast. They're going to go in. Kana immediately tries to tank up this Titan, and here comes the rest of the team.
Took a while for that Titan to reset. Sarpei's in the sky. Dunks back towards Angry. Sarpei out, but double stun by Silence. May just spell disaster for the Niflheim Wargs. 2 down. Coast gets 1. Adapting gets another one. And Coast fighting up against Spudio. Angry will find his first kill of the set. It's the only one that he needs.
He got one!
As the Highland Ravens end game 2, 25-47, 10-1 on the kills.
I mean, as I said before the set even began, if Angry gets a kill, the set's over. I called it 40 minutes ago. Come on, you guys heard that. Either way, clean play from the Ravens, showing why they are one of the 2 teams in the EUSCC currently that are undefeated. And I mean, you know, the question was when Adapting first joined back into the EUSCC, we were wondering, you know, is he going to be back to his former glory? Ever since this phase, he's been looking extremely clean. He's been showing off a ton of different picks. You know, he has been sticking to, like, as you said, the Thors, the Fenrirs, that sort of thing. He's been playing a bunch of different picks, been playing entirely clean. And the rest of the squad, another thing you said before we even started, they all have that carry potential. I mean, Coast has been popping off on the Chernobog. Angry hasn't been getting those kills, been doing consistent damage. And I think Silence and Kana have been setting up for this team extremely well, especially with Kana taking quite the deficit in the first game where just, you know, constant ganks over in that solo lane. Going Undying this time around, and Sarpe was still sitting on that lane. It was just clean play from the entirety of the Highland Ravens.
And how poetic for Angry ends in top damage as well after he gets his 1 kill for the entire set. So a 1-0-4 and a 0-0-7.
Bunch of last hitters, man.
For real. And Coast being the only one dying, the feeder of the squad this time around. Not able to find anything, but that game easily could have gone another 5 or so minutes, though, Charlie. And really, it felt like the only reason that the Ravens were able to kind of hit the gas pedal is because Adapting finds that 1v1 instant burst on a Sarpe, kills the Thor out, and skewers that fight just a little bit in favor of his team.
Yeah, and again, like, no relics used. That means that Sarpe didn't hit the wall, and then after that, it was just complete kill. And yeah, that was when the Rivers of Yuka I thought was going to be enough to get Spuddy out.
No, it was a Riptide over the wall that got thrown by Kha'Zix, and that's what caused Spudio to hit the wall. I was wondering what pushed him up against the wall, but it looks like from the middle of the lane, Kha'Zix threw a Riptide to try and help and end up actually killing his teammate.
Yeah, unlucky in that situation, but Adapting with the clean 1v1 there, and then we saw it took a little bit longer because the Titan, look at the Titan at this point. It's at like 10 HP, but they're always like, you know what, let's go for kills instead of actually going for the Titan end. That's just the style the Ravens like to play. I'm not going to sacrifice any damage this time because, you know what, it wasn't in the well. This was all true damage either way. And not actual true damage, right, because that would be broken. That was just real damage. And a crisp 2-0 for the Highland Ravens.
2-0 for the Ravens, 2-0 for the Scorpions. Only 1 EU set to go. But you're going to have to tune in tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. before that one actually goes through. Actually, no, that's going to be on Saturday.
Yeah.
Normally, it is over on the Friday, so it threw me off there for a moment. So Saturday, tune in for the Hex Mambo set up against the Gilded Gladiators. We'll see if the Mambo can hold their undefeated record up against the Gilded Gladiators. Gladiators, one of the only other teams in the league who have been able to find some wins out there between them and the Scorpions. Scorps now sitting at 2-1 for themselves. He's keeping that third place seed out there. Remember, these seeds very important for these teams as we start making that road towards Worlds. Seeding important as you move into the actual bracket up against not only the other teams within the SCC, but also the top SOC teams are going to be making it through. The number 1 and the number 2, making a full 8-team bracket out there. But that's it for the EU SCC. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump back across the pond over to North America, coming up right after this.